saw cones down in the harbor jutting into the air like antennae of some ungainly creatures that had crawled out of the ocean. The houses near the top of the slope were large and luxurious, with massive stone walls, impressive front gates, and two car garages. The azalea hedges were all trimmed neatly. I heard what sounded like a huge dog barking somewhere. It barked loudly 3 times. And then, as if someone had scolded severely, it abruptly stopped, and all around became quiet. As I followed the simple map on the invitation, I was struck by a vague, disconcerting premonition. Something that, just wasn't right. First of all, there was the lack of people in the street. Since getting off the bus, I hadn't seen a single pedestrian. 2 cars that did drive by, but they were on their way down the slope, not up. If a recital was really about to take place here, I would have expected to see more people, but the whole neighborhood was still silent, as if the dense clouds above had swallowed up all sound. Had I misunderstood? I took the invitation out of my jacket pocket to recheck the information. Maybe I misread it. I went over it carefully, but I couldn't find anything wrong. I had the right street, the right bus stop, the right date, time. I took a deep breath to calm myself and set off again. The only thing I could do was get to the concert hall and see. When I finally arrived at the building, large steel gates that locked tight, a thick chain around the gate, and was held in place by a heavy padlock. No one else was around, though. A narrow opening in the gate, I could see a fair-sized parking lot, but not a single car was parked there. Weeds had sprouted between the paving stones, and the parking lot looked as if it hadn't been used quite some time. Despite that, a large nameplate at the entrance took me that this was indeed the recital hall I was looking for. I pressed the button on the intercom next to the entrance, but no one responded. I waited a bit, then pressed the button again. Still no answer. Looked at my watch. The recital was supposed to be starting in 15 minutes, but there was no sign that the gate would be opened. Paint had peeled off in its spots, and there was starting to rust. Couldn't think of anything else to do, so I pressed the intercom button one more time. Held it down longer, but the result was the same as before. Deep silence. With no idea what to do, leaned back against the heavy steel gate and stood there for, I don't know, 10 minutes. I had a faint hope that someone else might show up before long. No one came. There was no sign of any movement, either inside the gates or outside. There was no wind, no birds chirping, now no dogs barking. As before, an unbroken blanket of gray cloud above. I finally gave up. What else could I do? And with a heavy steps started back down the street towards the bus stop, totally in the dark about what was going on. The only clear thing about the whole situation was there wasn't going to be a piano recital or any other event held here today. All I could do was head home, red flowers in hand. My mother would doubtlessly ask, "What are the flowers for?" And I would have to give some plausible answer. I once saw some in the trash can at the station, but they were, for me at least, kinda expensive to throw away. Down the hill, a short distance, there was a cozy little park, about the size of a house lot. On the far side of the parking, away from the street, angled natural rock wall, was barely a park. It had no water fountain or playground equipment. All that there was a little arbor plucked down the middle. The walls of the arbor were slanted, lattice work, overgrown with ivy. There were bushes around it, flat square, stepping stones on the block, on the ground. It was hard to say what the purpose of the park was, but someone was regularly taking care of it, I suppose. Trees and bushes were smartly clipped, with no weeds or trash around. On the way up the hill, I'd walked right by the park without noticing it. I went into the park to gather my thoughts and sat down on the bench in the arbor. I felt I should wait in the area a little longer to see how things developed. For all I know, people might suddenly appear. And once I sat down, I realized how tired I was. It was kind of strange exhaustion, as though I'd been worn out for quite a while. Hadn't noticed it. Only now had it hit me. From the arbor was this panoramic view of the arbor. A number of large container ships were docked at the pier from the top of the mountain. The stacked metal containers looked like nothing more than small tins you keep on your desk to hold coins or paper clips. After a while, I heard a man's voice in the distance. Not a natural voice, but one amplified by a loudspeaker. Couldn't catch what was being said, but there was a pronounced pause after each of sentence, and this voice spoke precisely without any trace of emotion, as if trying to convey something extremely important as objectively as possible. It occurred to me that maybe this was a personal message directed at me and me alone. Someone was going to the trouble of telling me where I'd gone wrong, what it was that I'd overlooked. Not something I would normally have thought, but for some reason it struck me that way. I listened carefully. The voice steadily got louder and easier to understand. It must have been coming from a loudspeaker on the roof of a car that was slowly winding its way up the slope, seemingly in no hurry at all. Finally, I realized what it was. A car broadcasting a Christian